Hey everyone, it's Rachel. Welcome back to another video where we talk about Canadian immigration. Today we're diving into the recently released numbers on temporary and permanent residents in Canada. I'm joined by my colleague Steph, who is the head of content strategy here at Moving to Canada and is one of the very talented immigration writers on our team. She'll be helping us break down the numbers and share what they mean. So Steph, how's it going?
Yeah, not bad. It's been a big day spent in spreadsheets today for me, but I'm excited to be here to talk about it.
Before we dive into the nitty-gritty, maybe we could start with where these numbers come from. So all the data that we'll be sharing later directly comes from the Canadian government, updated to show the numbers through to June 2025. The federal government was actually a little slow releasing these numbers compared to usual, but after Prime Minister Mark Carney was called out for them not being published, they showed up pretty quickly. So there was some politicking and drama going on behind the scenes with this data too. We're going to break down the TR and PR numbers and basically highlight the trends that we're seeing so far, and most importantly, explain what they mean if you are planning to move to Canada or if you're already here. Let's start with the temporary resident numbers. So Steph, can you walk us through that?
So one of the major changes that we saw for 2025 was the introduction of the temporary resident levels plans. This coincided with the goal of reducing the number of temporary residents in Canada to 5% of the overall population by the end of 2026. But I am about to throw around some numbers, so I'm wondering if you could pull up the immigration levels plan on the screen there. Yep, there we go. And if you just wouldn't mind leaving that there while I chat through so that people watching have a reference point back. The numbers we can see, especially in the 2025 column there, are going to be important through this next bit. Okay, so as you can see, the plan for 2025 was to bring in about 285,000 new workers through the International Mobility Program, 82,000 through the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. That's the one that includes LMIA-supported work permits, and almost 306,000 new international students. Throughout this whole bit, I am just going to be rounding to the closest thousand. So my numbers are going to be slightly off, but they are close enough, and it's just easier than saying a very long number each time. In terms of like this overall volume, it may seem like quite a few, but for context, Canada has previously had, in the recent years, very high levels of temporary residents. There were actually over 600,000 international students in 2023, for example. That's almost what we have for every category of temporary resident this year. As for how Canada is tracking as of June, I'll start with international students since I just used them as a reference point. As I said, the plan was to cut them down to 305,900. So far in 2025, it seems like the government is basically on track to hit that number. At the end of June, there were just shy of 150,000 international students that were approved for their study permit. So I guess they're technically a smidge under target, but very close. I dug through the data a little bit just to work out where these approvals were going. Around 1/3 of them went to Indian students, and then students from China, Nigeria, and the Philippines also saw a large share of the approved study permits. The rest were scattered through like almost every other country in the world. Next, onto the IMP, the International Mobility Program. We saw just over 302,000 approvals for the IMP in the first half of 2025, which is already well over what the federal government had budgeted for the year. And in terms of the TFWPs, we're also over the immigration levels target for them after just 6 months. That hit 105,000 approvals so far in 2025, which is more than 82,000. And interestingly, this one means we're still seeing around about the same level of temporary foreign work permits being approved as we saw in 2025. And that's despite the new restrictions that were placed on employers for this program, I think late last year, especially for the low-wage LMIAs.
So to refresh your memories on what those restrictions were, these were the unemployment rate restrictions, which mean that low-wage stream LMIAs aren't available in areas with higher unemployment, as well as caps on number of low-wage employees in any given space. To summarize what Steph said, international student levels seem to be in alignment with the immigration levels targets for 2025. But it seems that Canada will exceed numbers for both the International Mobility Program and the TFWP, unless they stop processing. But is that possible?
Yeah, I ran this one by Rebecca. I had the same question and it's a bit outside my scope, but she did mention that the targets are based on arrivals, not approvals of work permits. So there is going to be a bit of a disparity between who's actually coming into Canada and who's approved for that work permit. So it's possible that IRCC will slow down processing in the second half of 2025.
Let's move on to the permanent residency admissions. So, Canada's plan for this year is to welcome 395,000 new permanent residents. So, Steph, how are we tracking so far compared to the immigration levels plan?
Not too poorly. The data through to June shows that we've seen around 208,000 admissions so far this year. It's a little over the target that's highlighted there, but it's still within the range that is provided in smaller unbolded text below. Since the upper range for PR admissions this year is 435,000, it's not half of that, it's below that. So it's still definitely tracking in range for the target. I guess this is good news because it doesn't mean that things will necessarily slow down in the second half processing wise. I did have a look through the data just in terms of all of the other programs we have. So you can see that there's economic, and then if we scroll down further, there's family refugees. To be frank, like the data sets for these it's province by province and program by program. So it is an intense data set. And I had just a bit of time to do this, but I did look at a couple of key programs just to see how we were tracking so that we could draw some conclusions about how it's going overall. The one I was really interested to look at was PNP, the Provincial Nominee Program admissions. That program saw a huge cut in 2025. I think we've also noticed a slowdown in the number of invitations that we're seeing when we get the PNP draws. So you can see there that the target is 55,000 for 2025. And so far we've had 50,500. So we're just 4,500 short of the target at the end of June. The upper range for PNP is listed as 65,000. So there's a bit of wiggle room still, but it does seem like either processing there will slow down or that we'll see an overage in that category for this year. As for the Canadian experience class, that should fall under the In Canada focus there, which has around 83,000 for this year as the target. So far, it's actually only seen 33 admissions so far in 2025. So it seems we're tracking a little bit slowly for the In Canada focus. There are other programs that could contribute to it. There is a footnote that says it's expected that would be mostly Canadian experience class, but there may be a few federal skilled trades or federal skilled workers. The low range, I can't see it because it's really zoomed in, but I think the low range was around 39,000. So technically we're on track for the low range. Given the lengthy breaks we've had between draws and the inconsistent draw schedule throughout essentially this entire year, this is definitely a number I'll keep an eye on throughout the rest of the year as this data is slowly dripped out. The takeaway, I think, for people in the CEC pool at the moment is it does confirm your feelings, like things are moving slower than expected. It's not proceeding as we were sort of promised with this immigration levels plan, although bear in mind it's a political document. It's not a guarantee of what's going to happen. So yeah, it's a confirmation of feelings, but it's likely not that welcome news for those sitting in the pool with scores of 515 plus who really may have seen an invitation already if we had have stuck a little bit closer to what was expected here. Now I'll move on to outside of economic immigration. So if we could just scroll down to the family sponsorships and what we have for the refugees and protected persons as well. Perfect. I'll skim through this a bit faster since we don't tend to cover this in as much detail, but we've seen about 47,000 family sponsorships so far. So that's tracking towards the target of 94,500. And refugees, I guess, unsurprisingly, are seeing a bit of a surge. There have been over 40,000 admissions already this year and a target of just over 58,000. They're definitely trending ahead on refugee admissions, coupled with a long backlog of refugee claims in Canada's system. It means that there may be longer waits ahead for those looking to become PRs via the refugee category, which again is likely not welcome news since it is already such a brutal wait on that list. That was a lot of numbers, but to summarize, we're tracking a little ahead on refugee targets and provincial nominee program admissions. So we may see a bit of a slowdown in processing there, or the government might just continue as is. We don't know what will happen. But we are on track for economic immigration as a broad category and sponsorship as a broad category as well. A takeaway that did occur to me as well while I was writing is just what we're seeing in express entry draws at the moment, the processing times and the like. Unfortunately, it could be the status quo for some time, possibly even through to the end of 2026, maybe mid 2027. And again, I doubt this is the news you're hoping to hear. For some of you, it might be fine, if you're sitting in the pool at 5:30 or you're very close to passing your French, that'll give you that extra boost or qualify you for that category. Maybe that's fine. But I know the current climate is really causing heartache and stress for many others. I think we do just need to sit with this as the new normal and take a second to recognize that as a reality going forward. We did have a palate cleanser for you though. Rachel also took a quick look through some of the spreadsheets, which she's maybe still recovering from the headache. So did you want to walk us through that?
For sure. We can take a quick look at where the applications and confirmations of PR are coming from so far this year. If we start with the applications received from January to June 2025, interestingly, the top 5 source countries are India, Cameroon, Afghanistan, Philippines, and France. And I'll share a little visual aid on your screen just so you can see the numbers. And then when we look at the COPRs, or confirmation of permanent residence, issued in that same time frame, the list is just a smidge different. India again leads, followed by the Philippines, China, Cameroon, and Nigeria. And once again, I'll pull the numbers and I'll put them side by side so it'll be easier for you guys to compare. But pretty much the overall story here is that India continues to dominate both applications and approvals, but countries like Cameroon are showing up strongly in 2025 applications, and I think largely due to them speaking French. Meanwhile, the Philippines and China are seeing fewer COPRs compared to last year. That's a snapshot of where things stand for Canadian immigration in 2025.
For everyone watching, thank you so much for bearing with me. Hopefully the numbers were interesting for you. They are for me, but I am a massive data nerd. If you are currently in the pool for express entry, or even if you're looking to extend your status as a temporary worker or come to Canada as a temporary worker to start off with, our newsletter is a really great resource. We regularly share updates about what's going on in Canadian immigration. We'll cover any breaking news, we'll break down topics like this, and we demystify elements of Canadian immigration as well. We did a great video like this a few weeks ago covering misrepresentation. So if you don't want to miss out on the highlights of what's happening in Canadian immigration and settlement news in Canada generally, then you don't want to miss out on our newsletter. Just head to that link there. Or even just the homepage of our website as well. It's a super easy sign up. You'll get a follow-up email just asking what programs you're interested in so that we can send you the most relevant information. I strongly recommend reading it.
And with that, thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Steph, for breaking down the numbers and sharing all those tidbits with our viewers, even if it meant making you go cross-eyed looking through the Excel sheets. We really appreciate you for it. If you found this video helpful, give this video a like, drop your questions in the comments, and more importantly, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and also to our newsletter so you don't miss the next update. Until then, we'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye.